Hello, good evening, and welcome back. So he's only gone and done it, and you love to see it. A Burnley fan arranged a White Lives Matter banner from an aircraft, and in response, Blackpool has refused to allow any aircraft to fly that have a banner. And seeing as he's saying White Lives Matter, this is apparently racist. And no, this isn't a joke. It isn't a joke to try to suggest that having an equal and opposite reaction to something like Black Lives Matter is racist, which, has been a bit of a meme, but that is actually how it's being portrayed. So, of course, you want to say that all lives matter, and if you were to do that, then, of course, that would include black and white lives. But, of course, no, that can't be, because you've got your own protected group. And if you're trying to say that Britain is a racist country, then surely you would think that if somebody were to fly a White Lives Matter banner, then people would all be supporting it and it wouldn't have a terrible backlash. But of course it has done. And I think Douglas Murray is good at showing just how anti-racist Britain is, that if you condemn somebody as racist, if you have that accusation, then basically their life is over. People do incredulous things in order to try and prove that they're not racist. But the response from this has been particularly eye-opening, and I think what to be focused on. So as they say, the plane flew overhead just moments after Manchester City and Burnley players had taken a knee in support of the communist movement of Black Lives Matter, which is perfect timing. It's like in a wedding. It's like if anybody knows why these two people should not be wed, then speak now or forever hold your peace. And then running through the doors at that exact moment. That is exactly how they frame it here, and is splendiferous. It is perfect. It is outstanding that they could time it exactly like that. So Jake Hepple, the hero of Colne in Lancashire, because that's where Burnley is, in Lancashire, shared a video of the plane flying over the Etihad Stadium on his Facebook page and posted a message in which he refused to apologise for the stunt. For those who don't know, Burnley is about 21 miles north of Manchester, just by Blackburn. So I might go visit there at the weekend, show my support. Mr. Hepple wrote in his Facebook post, "I'd like to take this time to apologise to absolutely fucking nobody." And as he goes on to say, I think they have an image of it somewhere here. No? Okay. Yep, here we go. "It's now apparently racist to say White Lives Matter the day after 3 white people got murdered in a park in Reading, but we've all seen on the telly that it's Black Lives Matter after George Floyd got murdered. What a mad world we live in." Which is an incredibly good point. That you can have George Floyd, who died in police custody and was not murdered. The verdict has, of course, not been made yet. He hasn't been to court for the sentencing to be passed down. He's been charged with it, sure, but he hasn't been convicted. So it's an alleged murder, and again, it's not a murder yet, not legally speaking at least, and considering what George Floyd died of, that he evidently wasn't actually murdered, so that's perfectly fine to say that he wasn't murdered. But yes, black man died, and we're all fucked up about that, whereas 3 white people got stabbed, including 2 gay guys as it happened, who were all for diversity, the irony. And that's about it. Nobody really cares. The disconnect there is to, again, try and suggest that Britain is a racist country is bloody ridiculous. And he had an incredibly good point with that. So in response, of course, they trolled through his Facebook and went, "Oh my god, he's with Tommy Robinson, that is a centrist, and because he's not a communist, he must be evil." Good job there, guys. But the response from the club is what is particularly eye-opening, and this is what is getting the most amount of support from the vocal minority. To say that Burnley captain Ben Mee said the club's players were upset and embarrassed by the message on the banner. White Lives Matter, they're embarrassed. "We as a group of players condemn it." They actually condemn that White Lives Matter. Do you realise what you're saying? I think you're reading too far into this and then thinking he's saying something that he isn't saying. Because if you look at exactly what he's saying, why are you condemning that White Lives Matter? "We're ashamed and we're embarrassed," they said after Burnley's 5-0 defeat to Manchester City. Maybe you should be more ashamed and embarrassed about losing 5-0 instead of something that suggests that lives matter. I mean, You'll get people who condemn the Black Lives Matter movement because they don't like communism, and they'll be explicit in that to say we don't agree with the movement and we're not going to capitulate and yield to them. But like the people who would say, oh, we condemn the idea that Black Lives Matter, they're very few and far between. So I'm not sure what you're getting at here. They say it definitely had a massive impact on us to see that in the sky. We were embarrassed, disappointed, upset. We are embarrassed that our name was in it. Your name, Burnley Football Club, is because you're in Burnley. Where was the match happening? Burnley. Where was the plane flying? Burnley. So it's not your name. Don't read that much into it again, guys. Ben Me. Wish he had a double surname, and the last bit was two. So Ben Me too said that, and then you got Raheem Sterling, who, I mean, for fuck's sake, it's like, yeah, by all accounts, great footballer, sure, worth a lot of money, good on him, he's done well at his job, cool. Is he any good at analysing economics or politics? No. So do we care what he has to say on the matter? No. He's of course trying to claim he's experienced racism as a black man, despite being incredibly wealthy. So I don't care for it. I think you're just fabricating stories, to be perfectly honest. But he's got the photo of the White Lives Matter Burnley, and because it says White Lives Matter, it's clearly hashtag time for change. It's about time these white lives didn't matter, don't you know? Thank you, Raheem. I mean, if you're in the mood for getting people fired over racism, then surely saying it's time to change from white lives mattering, that's quite good, isn't it? Isn't that good? If Black Lives Matter isn't racist, White Lives Matter isn't racist. What does Black Lives Matter stand for? Communism. What does White Lives Matter stand for? That white lives matter. Because 3 people got stabbed. And they were white. And white lives matter. It's like, is that it? It's not really a movement, is it? It's not a movement, no. It's just a reminder. Cool. So if it's time for change about that, seeing as there is no movement, then you're just saying explicitly on White Lives Matter time for change, which is racism. It's not like a communist movement behind it, which people are condemning. It's literally just saying that white lives matter, and you're saying time for change. You're saying white lives don't matter. You are racist. If you want to get fined for being a racist, fucking go ahead. Or step down if you want. Or kneel down, because we know that's what you like doing. So, Burnley were also quick to condemn Hepple's actions and apologised for the incident. Apologised on his behalf, and thank God he didn't. We wish to make it clear that those responsible are not welcome at Turf Moor. Yes, don't you know that now every time you come into Turf Moor, you've got to explicitly state that white lives don't matter, and you are the first to be trampled or die in a fire because white lives don't matter. This in no way represents what Burnley Football Club stands for. And we will work fully with the authorities to identify those responsible and issue lifetime bans. Oh, I remember 4chan doing this. That with It's Okay to Be White, using Halloween a couple of years ago, and it's exactly the same thing here. I mean, if this is making front page news from Burnley across the country, you've got to think, in a country that's at this point about 80% white British, that most people are going to see this, and they're not going to be in on the culture or know what's going on. And especially if they publish the man's statement about it. And, I mean, it's perfect that he did that straight away. Before he was asked for comment, he already had that out there. So it's right there for people to see. And it's a bloody good point, especially seeing as it's timed so nicely. That people are going to go to that. They're going to read that. They're going to think, yeah, he's got a good point. Why are people hating it? Why are people getting annoyed that white lives matter? What is this all about? I suppose it just comes down to don't interrupt your enemies when they're making a mistake, because this is unfathomable that they lack this self-realization. And I mean, it's fantastic for anyone who's remotely right-wing and goes for libertarianism and individualism and doesn't want a foreign culture taking over their homeland. That's fantastic. So they say, the club has a proud record of working with all genders, religions and faiths through its award-winning community scheme and stand against racism of any kind. Good. So you agree white lives matter. Black lives matter. All lives matter. Fantastic. So they say, we are fully behind the Premier League's Black Lives Matter initiative. So you're behind the initiative, not the statement. Interesting. And, in line with all other Premier League games undertaken since Project Restart, our players and football staff willingly took the near kick-off at Manchester City. So you're kowtowing to communists. We apologise unreservedly to the Premier League, to Manchester City, and to all those helping to promote Black Lives Matter. And there it is. There it is. There it is. So it's not that they stand against racism of any kind. It's that they are in the pocket of Black Lives Matter. They are afraid of Black Lives Matter, really, given the damage that they cause. Hence, Black Fathers Matter. Let's get that trending. But, of course, they're going to investigate it further. Lancashire Constabulary's East Division Football Unit, who's responsible for policing Burnley's matches, confirmed that they will be investigating the incident. So, did someone break the law? No. Is what they said innocuous? Yes. Is what they said perfect to annoy all the right people? Yes. So is it all legal? Yes. So what are they investigating? There's nothing to investigate. Someone said White Lives Matter Burnley. There's nothing to investigate. It's pretty cut and dry. Unless you're thinking they're saying White Lives Matter is going to be provocative, in which case, who's it going to provoke? People who think white lives don't matter. And why the fuck are you protecting them? Because that's what it comes down to. What it comes down to is choosing racial preference of non-whites. That is the crux of the issue. Who they wish to protect, who they wish to choose, who is superior over everybody else is non-whites, and whites are at the bottom of the pile. That is exactly what they're showing here. So how the fuck are they still suggesting that racism against blacks is alive and well in the UK when it is clearly the opposite? And this is an exact example of that, with somebody who has not broken the law, but because they are suggesting that you should have equal footing, they're being investigated. Yes, for the radical act of thinking that maybe people are equal because they're people. That's being investigated. A guy looking for equality is being investigated by the police. That's where we're at. So no, Britain is not a bloody racist country against non-whites. If anything, according to what the police are doing here, it's racist against whites. So go fuck yourself. It's too far. If you think you're going to gain any political power in the future with this message, when you've got heroes, absolute heroes, like gentleman question, I want to find his name again, for being a great guy, Jake Hepple. Thank you, Jake. There he is. Such a great guy. These things are not cheap to fly banners, but to make this point, do something that is completely legal, to stoke up this complete overreaction for something that is innocuous and legal, is fantastic. And maybe you think calling him a hero is a bit overblown, but if you think about what he's going to go through and repercussions because of this, and I can pretty much guarantee that he knew he was going to face it, that is quite a heroic thing. I'm sure he was fearful of the repercussions of it. And being brave is not that you're not fearful, it's feeling the fear and do it anyway. And I think he's a fine example of that. So yes, there's the culture war, and you might think that's not so serious, but when you've got black people, or the Black Lives Matter movement, beating people up, attacking them, looting their stores, getting them to pay so that they're not attacked, I would say now that his picture is out there, and he knew that would happen, that's a bloody heroic thing to do. As long as he doesn't go to maybe Birmingham, which is a bit further south, but let's see, Burnley being near Blackburn, and being near Manchester, it's a bit dangerous. So I wouldn't say necessarily his life is in danger, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was. Especially when the black people know that police won't investigate if it's the black people involved because they're favoured by the police. So good luck, Jake. And I'm sure there'll be a Kickstarter soon for crowdfunding in order to pay legal bills that will be inevitable, because What you did was nothing wrong. So just know that, Jake. And we're all here for you. So until next time, have a good one.